Hey everyone, tonight we're talking about a day in an Edo-period Japanese village. Before you settle in, please like this video and subscribe if you truly enjoy the content I share here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim your lights, maybe turn on a fan for a relaxing background sound, and let's begin tonight's story together. The morning in a small Edo-period Japanese village does not begin with alarm or urgency. It begins instead with mist. Thick, low-hanging clouds of silver gather over the tiled rooftops, curling between thatched eaves and winding narrow paths like ghostly silk. The air is cool and wet just before the sun dares rise over the forested hills. Nothing stirs yet, except perhaps a rooster somewhere deep within the village. But even he seems reluctant to break the peace. A modest house of wood and wattle stands quietly in the center of a small hamlet. The roof, made of overlapping wooden shingles, is darkened from the night's damp. Thin trails of smoke begin to whisper out from one or two chimneys, coiling gently upward, dispersing into the soft gray above. Inside, the house is dim. Paper shoji screens faintly glow with the soft blue of pre-dawn light. Tatami mats line the floor, smooth and cool beneath the woven rush. A family of 5 sleeps in silence beneath futon stuffed, slightly lumpy but warm. The father stirs first. There is no clock to chime, no watch to glance at. He rises because the body remembers. It is time. Slowly, with the grace of ritual, he folds the futon, stacking it in the corner. The room now feels larger, its emptiness a kind of gentle readiness. His bare feet move soundlessly across the mat, his body wrapped in a plain indigo yukata. A wooden bucket of water waits just outside the door, covered with a cloth to keep insects and falling leaves away. He pulls it inside. With deliberate care, he splashes a small amount into a shallow ceramic basin. The water is cold, startlingly so. He does not flinch. Instead, he dips a cloth and gently wipes his face and neck, the water waking him, centering him. In the adjacent room, his wife now begins to stir. She does not speak. There is no need. They have lived this rhythm for years, through every season, every shift of rice and wind. She too folds bedding, straightens corners, and steps softly. Her robe is darker, almost black, with subtle vertical stripe saw pattern passed down from her mother. Her hair, long and straight, is tied up with a single comb of lacquered wood. The house is waking now, though still wrapped in quiet. She lights the hearth. Charcoal smolders. A gentle crackling fills the space. She takes a small clay pot scuffed, stained from years of use, and fills it with water from the bucket. Over the coals, the pot is settled, the water left to warm. Beside it, rice that had been washed and soaked the night before is added to a wooden steamer. She covers it with a woven lid and adjusts the fire to its lowest flicker. A soft aroma begins to drift through the house-clean water, warming wood, the faint promise of rice. It is a smell the children recognize, even in sleep. The oldest Stursa boy of perhaps 10 years, already accustomed to early hours. His eyes flutter open, and he rises with slow movements, mimicking his father. No words, just motion. Respect for the morning's quiet is already embedded in him. The younger two still toddlers remain asleep. Their dreams, unhurried and vague, play on in warmth. Outside, the sky begins to shift. Hints of peach and saffron pierce through the silver mist. Birds take up their gentle chorus, warblers, sparrows, and the occasional crow calling from a far-off tree. The village path is empty but for a dog lazily stretching in front of the rice storehouse, tail wagging once before curling again to sleep. A neighbor walks by, carrying 2 buckets, suspended from a wooden yoke balanced across his shoulders. He nods, slowly, respectfully, to the man standing now at the threshold of the house, breathing in the damp morning air. No words, just the soft scrape of Geta sandals against packed earth. The village itself is a constellation of such modest homesome, with tiled roofs, others thatched, most single-storied, all quietly dignified in their simplicity. Between homes run narrow paths lined with stones, bamboo fences tied neatly with straw rope, and gardens already showing hints of summer vegetables' daikon leaves, tiny eggplants still green, sprouting skyward. The boy carries a ladle of water to the small Kamedana household Shinto shrine mounted high on the wall, just below the ceiling beam. He bows, his hands pressed together, then sprinkles the water lightly, offering freshness to the protective spirits of the house. His mother now places pickled plum and a pinch of salt onto a small wooden tray, near the window a humble breakfast beginning. Tea leaves are added to the warmed pot, water poured carefully. The scent is earthy, grounding. The father sits cross-legged, not in authority, but as anchor. His wife joins, then the boy. The meal is quiet. There is no rush. Time in the village is not chopped into minutes, but shaped by shadows and sun. The family does not eat from ceramic ware, but from simple wooden bowls passed down for generations, smoothed by thousands of fingers, washed in river and rain. As they eat, the sounds of the village increase, but only slightly. A child laughing, a woman scolding a hen, the low hum of voices reciting Buddhist prayers from a home near the edge of the trees. The rice is warm, sticky, satisfying. A pickled radish, sliced thin, adds brightness. Green tea warms the belly. Once finished, the boy clears the bowls. The father rises, tying a cloth around his head in preparation for the fields. The mother sets aside the kettle and wipes down the small table. She will begin laundry next. In the corner of the home sits a basket of white clothsome still damp from yesterday's wash, others ready to be soaked. She carries the load to the edge of the nearby stream, where smooth stones form a natural basin. The stream is slow today, gentle, barely more than a trickle. She kneels on the bamboo mat set beside the water, dips the first cloth, and begins to scrub in long, even strokes. The sound is soothing cloth against stone, water rushing quietly. She is not alone. 2 other women are there, both bent over their own baskets. They speak in low tones of the weather, of this year's plum blossoms, of a chicken that wandered too far the evening before. There is no gossip, no drama, just conversation, like the stream continuous but not urgent. By now, the sun has risen fully, casting golden warmth over the thatched rooftops. The mist has disappeared, burned off gently by light. The village is now fully awake, but it is still peaceful. It is still slow, and it will stay that way. All of it, the rhythm, the rituals, the smells, the quiet gestures forms the heartbeat of this world. A world where time moves not with alarms, but with incense, not in noise, but in stillness. The fire has now grown into a steady, glowing warmth. It is no longer the fragile ember of dawn. It is the center of the home of every home. The hearth is the heart of this village life. Clay pots sit low over the coals, their bellies round and familiar, blackened from years of careful use. Steam rises gently from within each wisp, curling upward like a prayer to the rafters. The scent of rice begins to deepen, not sweet, not sharp, just comforting, full, earthy, like soil after rain. In the kitchen, if it can be called that there is no separation, no wall or door, everything has a place. There are no unnecessary tools, no idle luxuries. Wooden ladles, bamboo strainers, rice paddles smoothed by hundreds of hands. Each item quietly waits for its role in the day's slow unfolding. The mother, her name might be Okina, moves with easy certainty. She knows each step of this dance before her feet touch the ground, before her eyes even open fully. She uncovers the steamer, careful not to burn her hands on the rising cloud of heat. Inside, white rice glistens faintly, swelling and plump, nestled in soft cloth. She closes the lid again and lets it sit. Patience is a form of seasoning. Beside her, a younger girl, perhaps her daughter, age 7, begins to rinse the breakfast bowls. They were not left dirty the night before. Only a rinse is needed now, from the wooden bucket in the corner. The floor is swept. There are no shoes here. Only bare feet or straw-soled zori step across the tatami. Outside, the sun is climbing slowly but steadily. Soft golden light pours through the slats and paneling. The shadows shift gently, like silk threads across the mat. The 2 youngest children begin to wake now. The toddler whines softly, then crawls out from his blanket and reaches for the edge of his sister's robe. She lifts him without a word, balancing him on her hip, moving him toward the doorway where sunlight pools like warm honey. He yawns, a sound not unlike the distant call of a crane. Their eldest brother has already left. He carries a basket to the shared well at the edge of the village, walking the same path his father did at his age. Not rushed, not sluggish, just steady, balanced. The way of the village, a neighbor passes and smiles an old woman, her back hunched but eyes alert. She offers a soft wave and a single boiled chestnut wrapped in paper. A silent exchange of generosity. Back at the house, Okinu stirs the miso paste into the soup pot. Fermented soybean paste, preserved in thick ceramic jars in the corner of the house, is added slowly with water drawn earlier. Seaweed, dried overnight on bamboo mats, is rehydrated in the broth. A few wild greens, picked just days before, float softly on the surface. She does not taste it. She does not need to. Years of repetition have taught her hands to know. As the miso soup simmers, she takes a moment to wash the wooden rice paddle in cold water. It is a family tool, older than her marriage, handed down from her husband's mother. She once said, "Never let it dry with rice still stuck. It hardens like stone and holds ghosts." The little girl hums as she wipes the bowls dry with a square of cotton cloth. She does not know the tune's name, but she knows it by heart. The toddler chews on a strip of dried sweet potato, his feet swinging above the floor. Soon the family will gather again for their morning meal. Not elaborate, not loud, just rice, soup, maybe a pickle. But before that, there is water to heat for washing. A large pot is brought near the hearth. Water from the well is poured in slowly. Okinu adds a handful of dried orange peels, not for cleaning, just for scent. The water will later be used to wipe the floors, rinse cloths, and wash hands before the first field work begins. She takes a wooden comb and gently untangles her daughter's hair, running the teeth slowly from crown to shoulder. The child winces once. A tangle, then it's gone. There are no mirrors in the home, no time for vanity, only tidiness. The boy returns from the well. He sets the bucket down without spilling a drop. Okinu nods once. Approval without words. Now, finally, it is time to eat. The family sits together kneeling, cross-legged, a toddler on a lap. The bowls are passed down the line. The soup is poured, the rice uncovered, and the smell fills the space like gratitude. No one speaks for the first few bites. It is a small thing, but meaningful. The quiet honors the food. The silence is a blessing. Later, the father leaves with his hoe slung over one shoulder, straw hat shading his eyes. He joins two others at the edge of the rice paddy, where reflections of clouds ripple across the water's surface. But here, back at the house, the second rhythm of the morning begins. The little girl begins to fold cloths. The toddler tries to copy her, folding the same square again and again, even if crooked. He is learning. Okinu brings out a wooden tub and fills it with warm water. She washes their feet gently, deliberately, not just for cleanliness, but to prepare the children for the day's chores. In the Edo household, care is a ritual. She dries them with a soft towel, sun-dried and crisp, then wraps their feet in tiny tabi socks. The girl ties her sash. The toddler plays with a knot of his. There is laundry to tend to. Not much, just what was worn yesterday and what's needed tomorrow. She folds a pile of white tenugi cloth-like towels used for everything. Headbands, wiping hands, carrying goods. She stacks them neatly, their folds like rice rows in a paddy. Each task is small, but together they shape the home. To keep a clean floor is to care for one's ancestors. To serve rice without waste is to honor the farmer's toil. To dress a child with patience is to shape the future with hands. Outside, a light breeze stirs the edge of the Noren curtain hanging at the entrance. It flutters once, then stills. A neighbor walks past, carrying a basket of tofu wrapped in white linen. She offers a greeting, "Ohayu gozaimasu." Okinu replies with a bow. There are no clocks, no calendars. But still, everything happens on time. By mid-morning, the children play briefly before their work begins. Not games, exactly, but small joys. Skipping stones, chasing shadows of birds, watching ants carry rice husks up the edge of a garden pot. Okinu watches them from the threshold, her hands in a bowl of warm rice water. She cleans the wooden table in slow, steady circles, not scrubbing, just coaxing away what no longer belongs. And then, as the sun reaches higher, she prepares a pack for her husband's midday meal rice balls wrapped in bamboo leaves. A piece of pickled plum at the center, folded neatly, tied with twine, passed to him with a bow. The household pauses again. A lull, a breath. For just a moment, the only sound is the soft trill of a bird resting on the roof's edge. The sun now rests just above the horizon's curve, stretching golden warmth across the emerald fields. It is mid-morning, and the farmers have been working since the world was still soaked in mist. The air is warmer now, still gentle, but thick with the scent of wet soil and crushed grass. Each breath feels fuller, more fragrant, more rooted. This, too, is a kind of sacred space. The rice fields, rectangular mirrors of the sky, glisten beneath the sun. Neatly leveled and rimmed by hand-built dikes, they lie quiet and full, humming with unseen life. A dragonfly hovers just above the surface. Below, minnows dart in and out of the flooded paddies, disturbing reflections of scattered clouds. A man kneels at the field's edge. His straw hat casts a round shadow over his face, hiding the lines carved by seasons. His hands are rough, cracked from years of soil, but they move with practiced gentleness. He grips a kuwa, a small hoe, its wooden handle smoothed by use. Not a tool of force, but of finesse. He pushes it through the muddy earth, breaking the crust with slow, deliberate strokes. Every movement has rhythm, a quiet cadence passed down from his father, and his father's father before him. To the farmer, this land is not merely for growing rice. It is a living companion, a breathing partner. Beside him, a younger man, perhaps his son, mirrors the work. Though his strokes are not quite as fluid, not yet as quiet, they are respectful. He speaks little, only asking when he does not understand, and when he does, the older man responds with no more than a nod or a grunt, and sometimes a smile. In the Edo period, rice was not only food. It was currency. It was tax. It was power. But here, in the field, it is something simpler, more intimate. It is nourishment, the product of patience and rain, of sweat and stillness. Between the rows, frogs croak in chorus. The mud is warm underfoot, and though it grips the legs like soft hands, the farmer does not resist. He wades through it slowly, inspecting each stalk. It is late spring, the Tao season, the time of transplanting young rice seedlings from nursery beds into the waterlogged fields. The work is slow, back bent, hands low. Each seedling is placed by hand, one by one, row by row. It is not work that allows for haste. At the edge of the field, a bamboo pole stands upright, tied with strips of white paper, a simple shrine to Tanokami, the rice field deity. A small offering of sake in a ceramic dish rests at its base, next to a dried fish and a handful of chestnuts. The farmers pause briefly here each morning, offering a silent bow before the day's labor begins. They believe the god watches not to punish, but to bless. In the distance, an old man hums a folk tune half sung, half whistled a melody with no name, only rhythm. It floats across the paddies, a lullaby for rice and wind. Beside the dike, a woman tends a row of scallions. Her wide sleeves are rolled up and tied with simple cords. She too has a straw hat, slightly frayed at the edge. She carries a small sickle and a wooden basket for greens. This is not her husband's work, but hers. A quiet division of labor, drawn not from command, but from years of unspoken agreement. She pauses to watch a pair of children chasing each other along the narrow path between fields, giggling, slipping in the mud, catching frogs. They are barefoot, their feet dark with earth. She smiles. Soon she returns to her task, gently separating sprigs with her fingers, cutting cleanly, and placing them in the basket without waste. A young girl, perhaps no older than 10, sits nearby on a flat rock, watching her grandmother work. In her lap is a string of beads made from rice hulls and twine. She braids them, her hands unsure but learning. The elders say that rice grown under a full moon makes for sweeter sake, that planting before the cuckoo sings brings poor harvest, that frogs in the fields are the gods' messengers. Some laugh at these tales, but most simply believe. Because belief, like rice, grows best in water soft, unhurried, and rooted in the familiar. By midday, the sun is high. Its heat, though filtered through the breeze, presses gently on the backs of necks. The farmers pause. From a cloth sack, one removes 2 rice balls onigiri wrapped in bamboo leaves. Inside, the rice is firm, still cool. At the center, pickled plum, a burst of flavor against the bland. They eat in silence, seated on stones or crouched by the dike. The water laps softly behind them. A heron lands several feet away, cautious but unafraid. The lunch break is short, not because they must hurry, but because their bodies prefer rhythm over rest. One of the men uncorks a small wooden gourd of water and takes a sip. Another removes a cloth from his head and wrings it out, sweat and stream water blending together. Then, with a single breath, they return to work. The second half of the day brings different tasks. Repairing the levees between fields, clearing the weeds from the edge, inspecting for signs of pests, golden apple snails, rice water weevils. The elder farmer crouches low, sifting through the muddy water with 2 fingers, eyes narrowed. He removes a single snail, places it in a basket with others. Each one removed now is a stalk saved later. To outsiders, it may seem menial, monotonous, even dull. But to those who live it, each act is a stitch in the larger fabric. Each tug of weed, a prayer. Each mud-soaked footstep, a mark of continuity. At the far end of the paddy, a group of women have gathered to repair a bamboo fence, their sleeves tucked high. They speak softly, occasionally laughing, weaving new stalks of bamboo with old, reinforcing the frame. Even as they work, they hum. A rhythm again. One speaks of the coming summer festival, another of a child's lost sandal. The third tells a story of her grandfather, who once claimed a rice god visited him in a dream, whispering that the best rice grows under cloud, not sun. They all nod, not necessarily in agreement, but in affection. The stories are old. The work is older. In the distance, temple bells toll once. Not loud, not sharp. Just a deep, resonant tone carried by the wind across the fields. The farmers pause again, not to pray, not to think, just to feel. To listen, the wind rustles the stalks. The sun reflects off shallow water. The day continues, not in urgency, but in patience. It is a life that moves in season, not seconds. It is a life that grows where the feet stand still longest. The sun has shifted past its peak. Its golden weight stretches across rooftops and paddies, casting longer shadows now. It is afternoon in the village, not yet evening, not quite stillness. A soft lull begins to settle into the day. In the family home, the hearth is quiet but not cold. The fire has been reduced to embers' orange pulses in a bed of gray ash. A kettle, suspended above, begins to whisper. Not a hiss, more of a murmur, like two neighbors speaking gently across a fence. The mother moves slowly now. The pace of her steps has changed, not from fatigue, but from rhythm. She unties her sash and rewraps it loosely, sits near the hearth, and watches the steam begin to curl. There is no urgency to the water's boil. The tea will be made when it is ready, not before. A small lacquer tray rests beside her, bearing 2 cups, a tiny jar of pickled plums, and a folded cloth. She selects tea leaves from a wooden box roasted hojicha, the leaves curled and brown, toasted rather than green. The scent is earthy, comforting, warm, like straw in the sun. Familiar. The children, now finished with their morning tasks, sit cross-legged nearby. The toddler rests with his head in his sister's lap, sucking softly on a strip of dried persimmon. His eyelids drift downward, tugged gently by the warmth and stillness of the room. Outside, a neighbor sweeps the shared path. The swish of her broom punctuates the silence like the tail of a brushstroke. Inside, the mother pours the hot water slowly first into an empty cup, then from that cup into the second, letting the water cool gently before reaching the leaves. This is not ceremony. There is no fanfare, just attention. The tea darkens slowly, filling the air with toasted sweetness. She hands the first cup to her daughter, who accepts it with both hands, bowing slightly, instinctively. Together they sip, quietly, with presence. The toddler has fallen asleep, his breathing soft and even. The girl's hands cradle her warm cup. She watches the steam rise, imagining it as a spirit thin and white, dancing toward the rafters. Not far from the hearth, the grandmother sits on a low stool beside the open window. In her lap, a square of cotton, partially stitched. Her fingers move slowly through the fabric, weaving needle and thread in a steady rhythm. She is not creating something new. She is mending. A work apron torn by the garden. A sleeve frayed at the seam. A child's sock with a hole where a toe has grown too fast. Her stitches are not perfect, but they are consistent little steps in a long walk. On the windowsill sits a wooden cage. Inside, a small cricket chirps once, then falls silent. The girl set it there the week before, and the family leaves the window open now, so it may come and go. The grandmother sets the cloth aside, stretches her hands, and reaches for a basket of dried herbs, mugwort, chrysanthemum, shiso. She begins to separate the leaves from the stems, collecting them in small piles, each sorted by scent and purpose. These herbs will be used in the bathwater, or to flavor rice, or to wrap around the ankles in summer to ward off insects. Nothing is wasted here. Not thread, not time, not sunlight. Across the room, the girl rises and brings a folded cloth from the shelf. She unfolds it carefully, a child-sized kimono, and begins to dust it with a soft brush. Her strokes are slow, downward, repeating in pairs. It was her brother's once. Now it will belong to the toddler. There is a quiet pride in the gesture, a handing down, a continuity. Outside, the cicadas grow louder, their steady chorus echoing from the trees along the hillside. The father has returned briefly, removing his straw hat and wiping his brow. He washes his hands in a basin set beneath the eaves, using the leftover water from the midday kettle. The girl brings him a small dish of salted cucumber and a rolled towel for his neck. He nods not in thanks exactly, but in acknowledgement. He sits just beyond the doorway, letting the breeze pass over his skin. There are still tasks ahead, tools to clean, paths to check, shutters to fasten before dusk. But now is the hour of pause. The house, though open, feels wrapped in quiet, as if cushioned by its own breath. The mother returns to the hearth and adds a single stick of incense to the ash beside the embers. It smolders, releasing a thin spiral of smoked sandalwood and faint citrus. The scent moves through the room like a memory. She brushes the tatami with a small broom, careful not to disturb the sleeping child. The girl returns her cup to the tray. The grandmother begins to hum a slow tune, barely audible, her lips not fully moving. A tune from childhood, a tune for still hands and steady afternoons. Outside, a sparrow hops along the roof beam, peering into the house, then darting away. The Norn curtain at the door sways once, then stills. The toddler stirs in his sleep. The girl lays her hand gently on his back. He sighs and returns to his dreaming. In the corner, the tea leaves cool. The embroidery waits. The house holds stillness without demanding it. There is no rush. No one is watching the clock. Only the shadows on the floor and the long golden light of afternoon. The sky dims slowly, almost reluctantly. Evening comes not with a shout, but a whisper. It arrives in shadows, first under the trees, then across rooftops, and finally on the floorboards of the home. It pools in corners, stretches across the walls like ink in water. The cicadas have softened. Now the frogs begin their song low, rhythmic, ancestral. In the fields, the last farmers gather their tools. The wooden handles creak softly under tired hands. Wicker baskets are lifted, straw hats removed. Mud is rinsed from feet at the stream's edge, not hurriedly, but carefully, as if washing away the weight of the day. In the house, the hearth has been rekindled. A thin column of smoke drifts upward, catching the amber light of dusk. Dinner is prepared in layers quietly, patiently. Rice from the midday pot is reheated over the fire. Miso soup is stirred once more, this time with a handful of green onion and a pinch of sea salt. A piece of grilled mackerel, wrapped earlier in bamboo leaves, is unwrapped and set on a wooden tray. There is no feast. Only enough, and enough is always enough. The grandmother arranges pickled daikon in a shallow dish, each slice fanned out like the petals of a chrysanthemum. The child watches, wide-eyed, and mimics the motion with her hands in the air. The father returns, his sleeves rolled up, shoulders lowered. He speaks little, only a soft greeting to his wife, a nod to his mother. He sets down the basket, now filled with washed greens, and stretches once by the doorway, spine popping like firewood cracking. The toddler runs to greet him. The father lifts him just for a moment, then sets him down again with a smile that says, "Yes, I'm here." They sit to eat. No table, just floor and cushions. Each bowl is passed with care, never tossed, never rushed. Chopsticks are used with quiet precision. Even the toddler, fumbling slightly, knows the rhythm of eating. Voices are low, conversation slow. There are no arguments, no urgency to finish. Only chewing, sipping, sharing. Between bites, someone laughs gently at something the child says a mispronounced word or an imagined story about a frog who wears sandals. The laugh is brief but warm. The moment passes, as they all do. After dinner, bowls are rinsed in silence, left to dry upside down. A cloth is passed across the floor, wiping up any stray rice. Cleanliness here is not about appearance. It is about respect. Respect for space, for ancestors, for the day itself. The light dims further now. Shadows dance on the paper walls. A single lantern is lit, its flame soft and flickering, casting gold and orange onto the ceiling. Its paper shade sways gently in the breeze, though the window has long since been closed. The grandmother sits near the door with a bundle of twine. She begins to braid it tight, even knots creating a small cord that will later be used to fasten herbs or tie a cloth parcel. The little girl crawls into her lap. She does not speak. She just rests there, eyes half closed, listening to the night settle in. Outside, the wind moves gently through the bamboo. The reeds click softly against each other, a natural lullaby. The mother places a kettle on the hearth once more, this time not for tea, but to humidify the air. She adds a handful of dried yuzu peel and mugwort. The scent is soothing lemony, green, faintly sweet. The toddler is bathed in warm water poured from a ceramic jug. His sister helps wash his hair with a cloth. He giggles once, then yawns so wide it takes his whole face. He is dried with a towel and dressed in a soft night robe hand-stitched, its cotton worn smooth by years of washing. The futons are unrolled again across the tatami. Pillows filled with buckwheat hulls are placed at the head. A folded tenyugi cloth rests nearby to wipe the forehead if the night is too warm. They do not all sleep at once. Not yet. The grandmother tells a story softly, slowly, as if reading from air. It is about a boy who befriends a fox in the hills, about a crane who becomes a woman, about a tree that speaks only when the moon is full. The story is not finished. It never is. It ends when the toddler begins to breathe deeper and the girl's head rests on her grandmother's shoulder. The lantern is dimmed now, the fire reduced again to embers. The mother and father sit a moment longer in the hush, neither speaking, their silhouettes, lit only by the final orange glow of the hearth. They have lived this day many times, and will live it again tomorrow, and that is enough. Outside, the wind shifts slightly. A single owl calls from the trees. The reeds sway once more, then still. One by one, they lie down. The home sighs quietly. The night deepens, and sleep, not hurried, not forced, but welcomed, takes them gently. The house sleeps. Within its wooden walls, time stretches thin, not forward, not backward, just still. The fire has gone cold. Only faint warmth lingers in the stone of the hearth like a memory folded into the earth. Shoji screens glow faintly with moonlight. Outside, silver washes over the garden path, painting the stones with quiet. The bamboo fence stands motionless, save for the occasional twitch of a leaf. The frogs continue their call, but softer now, as if singing only to the stars. Inside, breath rises and falls. The father lies flat, his arm over his chest. The mother, curled gently on her side. The toddler has wriggled from his blanket, one foot exposed, rising and falling with each slow inhale. The grandmother murmurs once in sleep. A name, maybe. A place. A thread from long ago, caught and released. Even the girl who so often stays awake longest is still now. One hand tucked beneath her cheek, the other resting palm up, open to the night. The wind brushes past the house. It does not knock. It only passes, a traveler with no need to stop. In the far distance, the temple bell chimes. Only once. Its sound floats across fields, villages, forests, and then fades, as if it had never been struck. Above, the stars blink slowly, their light having traveled farther than any cart, farther than any bird, farther than any prayer. Here, in this moment, beneath roof and thatch, beneath cedar beam and folded cloth, there is peace. The rice fields, too, are still. No more laughter along the levees. No sandals sliding through the mud. Only water, reflecting a sky it can never touch. A heron sleeps in a pine tree. A fox, miles away, presses its nose to the wind. A bamboo shoot unfurls another inch, unseen, unheard. The village dreams. Not just its people, but the trees, the stones, the rooftops. They dream of sunlit mornings, of smoke spiraling upward, of the child's giggle as he splashes in the stream. The old gods of the field rest too. Tano Kami, the rice guardian, leans on his staff and watches mist form over the dikes. He does not speak. He only waits, as he always has. Time here is not an arrow. It is a circle, a rice bowl refilled again and again, a season folding into another, a child becoming the parent, becoming the elder, becoming the soil. There is no beginning, no end, only breath, only silence, only the rhythm of small things continuing. A moth lands on the window frame. Its wings are nearly invisible in the dim glow. It stays for just a moment, then flutters away. In the home, the coals shift slightly. A soft pop, a faint release of smoke, but no one stirs. The world outside has not stopped. It has simply softened. The sounds have not ceased. They have only grown gentle. And now, the village sleeps deeper, not just bodies, but time itself. Slowed, settled, safe. Morning arrives differently now. The air has changed warmer even before the sun appears, heavier, more fragrant, Not yet humid, but hinting. Summer is near. The villagers feel it in their bones, though no one speaks of it. They rise just a bit earlier, drink their tea just a bit slower, and let the breeze move through their sleeves before it disappears for the day. A single cicada begins to sing in the elm beside the granary. One voice, then two, then a soft chorus. Not loud, not yet. Only a tremble in the soundscape, like the earth whispering upward through bark and leaf. The mother is already at the well, drawing water before the sun climbs too high. She pours a bucket's worth into a wooden basin beside her, then adds handfuls of indigo leaves from a cloth bundle. The water swirls dark blue, not deep at first, more like sky caught in a pool. Beside her, the daughter unwraps lengths of linen, already stitched and folded for dyeing. These are gifts meant for a cousin's wedding in the next village. Simple, practical garments, but made with care and meant to carry beauty. They work in silence, the only sound being water over hands and the soft rustle of cloth being submerged. In the dye house, not far from the garden, the grandmother tends to another pot, this one bubbling slowly over coals. It's clay-colored, heavy, stained with years of use. She lifts the lid just slightly, steam escapes with a scent of wood ash, plant matter, and something else. Time itself, perhaps. Dyeing is not quick work. It is waiting. Layers upon layers of dipping, resting, drying. Just like the seasons, the toddler has wandered toward the edge of the field, squatting beside a pile of flat stones. He watches ants move in procession, hundreds of them, carrying invisible loads, navigating cracks and pebbles like rivers. He does not interrupt. He only watches, occasionally humming a note that matches the cicadas. The sun rises higher. The light now is different from spring, not gentle, but bold. Shadows are sharper. The green's more intense. The air, though still scented with earth, now carries the faint spice of pine resin and warmed bark. The men are already at work, trimming bamboo poles to repair the gate. One holds the stalk steady while the other saws. There is no rush, only rhythm. Each cut is clean, deliberate. A third man, the neighbor, arrives with tea in a gourd. He says little, only sets it down, nods, and returns to his own tool shed. There is community here, but it is quiet, like roots growing beneath the surface. Not all work is field work. Not every day is rice. In early summer, the temple prepares for a cleansing ceremony, a midsummer ritual to honor the turning season and brush away unseen dust from the soul. This afternoon, the villagers will walk to the temple, not as pilgrims, not as penitents, just as themselves. The temple sits on a gentle rise above the village, its stone steps flanked by old cedar trees and moss-covered lanterns. It is not grand, but it is still. At midday, the mother prepares a small meal for the wok rice balls with pickled shiso, a folded cloth of dried sweet potato slices, and a tin flask of barley tea. She wraps them neatly in a square of indigo cloth, still damp from the morning's dye vat, now dried under the eaves. The daughter changes into her light robe, a summer weave, loosely tied, with faint patterns of bamboo stitched in white. Her hair is braided, but not tightly. The toddler is carried on the father's back, tucked under a sling. His head rests against the broad line of his father's neck, already nodding toward sleep. Together, they begin the slow walk up the hill. The path curves gently, shaded by trees that have seen more summers than any villager alive. Their leaves click softly in the breeze, and the air grows slightly cooler as elevation lifts them above the sun-soaked village below. At the gate, they bow a simple, instinctive gesture, not from obligation, but from rhythm. Inside, the temple garden is raked. Patterns spiral outward from the center, as if the earth itself is breathing in circles. The priest, an old man with few words, pours water over the stone basin. Its sound is soft, like rain returning to soil. One by one, the villagers rinse their hands. Left, right, then mouth, then bow. The ceremony is not loud. There is no chanting, only silence, and the occasional call of a hawk far above. A small fire is lit. Herbs are burned: mugwort, cedar, sandalwood. Smoke curls upward in thin strands, merging with air, fading into sunbeams that pass through the old wooden beams of the temple. Each villager writes a name, a memory, or a worry on a narrow strip of rice paper. These are gathered, folded, and placed in the flame. They do not burn fast. They disappear slowly, curling into smoke, each one drifting like a sigh. No one claps, no one speaks. The toddler stirs and opens his eyes just long enough to see the smoke rising, then closes them again. The walk home is slower, as if the world has grown heavier with heat or lighter with peace. They pass the field again. The neighbor waves, still trimming poles. The girl skips ahead, chasing the long shadow of a crane walking near the water. By late afternoon, the sun begins to soften. Back in the home, the indigo cloths are unwrapped, hung to dry on bamboo rods near the garden. They flutter slightly, each one a different depth of blue. Some pale as cloud shadow, some deep as midnight. The grandmother smiles as she runs her hand along the edge of one. The color is true. She sits once more beside the window, spinning leftover thread into cord, twisting it between thumb and finger, a rhythm that matches the wind. The toddler lies on a mat nearby, playing with a carved horse. He makes no sound, only tilts the horse gently back and forth as if rocking it to sleep. The temple bell tolls once, then again, then fades. Evening will come soon. The air will shift. The fire will be lit again. But for now, all things are suspended, balanced, held gently in the palm of time. The morning begins with a different kind of stillness. Not the hushed quiet of sleep, but a pause before motion. An exhale before the world begins to stir. The sun has just crested the ridge of pines to the east. Its first rays fall not on the fields, but on the road leading out of the village, a narrow path, worn smooth by generations of footsteps, carts, and sandals. Today is market day. It does not come every day, only every 6. Marked not by calendar, but by rhythm, a timing older than paper. The family rises early, even earlier than usual. Not from urgency, but from tradition. Market morning has a tone, a temperature one known without being spoken. The father folds small packets of dried persimmon into cloth, tying them with twine. The daughter arranges bundles of straw rope, coiled neatly, ready for barter. The mother checks a small basket of daikon, selecting only the smoothest, cleanest roots, earth still clinging gently to the ends, not scrubbed too hard. The toddler rides in the sling again, bouncing slightly with each of the mother's steps as she moves through the house, collecting, tying, checking. The grandmother does not go to market anymore. Her feet are tired, and her eyes prefer the shade. But she sits by the door and blesses the basket, tracing her fingers briefly over the lid. Not a prayer exactly, just a gesture part memory, part magic. By mid-morning, the road carries more than one family. Neighbors pass each other with small bows, soft laughter, and gentle greetings. Your greens are early this year. You've brought sandals, haven't you? I heard the eel seller is back from the coast. The girl walks beside her father, holding the handle of the cart as it bumps gently over the stone path. She carries a coin pouch tied at her hip, not full, but real. The path curves downward through fields, then passes beneath a tall torii gate flanked by flowering bushes. Beyond, the trees thin. The breeze changes, and the market comes into view. It is not grand. No walls, no arches, no banners shouting prices. Just space cleared by time and yews ringed by trees and wide enough to hold the breath of many. The stalls are simple canvas cloth over wooden beams. Bamboo poles strung with cords to hold baskets, lanterns, and signs. There is no shouting. Only murmur. Only flow. Vendors sit cross-legged on mats, hands busy tying knots, folding cloth, measuring rice by weight and guesswork. Children dart between stalls, barefoot and unbothered. Elderly men drink barley tea from gourd flasks, sitting on low stools, watching the stream of life pass slowly. The family stops first at the rice seller. He is old, older than the grandmother, with a back curved like a bow, and fingers calloused from decades of counting grains. They do not speak at first. The daughter bows. He bows in return. She sets her pouch on the mat. He nods once, disappears into a stockpile, and returns with a small wrapped parcel. Trade complete. The next stop is the sandal maker. The father examines the weave of each pair, thick rush grass bound by hand, tight and uniform. He tests the fit against the girl's foot. Too small. Then another. Just right. They pay with 2 dried fish and a string of plums. No coins change hands. Only value, known and honored. The sun rises further, casting patterned light through the banner cloths overhead. A paper lantern swings in the breeze, its red ink faded, but still bold against the canvas sky. It bears the character for wind. The toddler reaches for it as they pass, and the mother lifts him just high enough to brush it with his fingers. He laughs once, then rests again. The girl walks ahead, watching a woman arranging pickled vegetables by color yellows, purples, reds. A small brush is used to dust each slice with powdered salt. The girl is offered a sample. She bows before taking it. The taste is sharp and sour, but bright. She smiles, eyes watering slightly. Next to them, a seller of paper goods lays out folded fans, each hand-painted, some with cranes, others with water lilies or mountain scenes. She selects one pale blue dotted with fireflies. The woman behind the stall wraps it in mulberry paper, tied with a strand of black thread. It is the girl's only purchase. She holds it like treasure. In the shade of a pine tree, a man plays a shakuhachi flute, soft, meandering notes that curve through the crowd like smoke. He is not paid, only watched. The music is not a performance. It is a thread, something that weaves sound into air. Nearby, 2 farmers exchange tools, not new, but cared for. The blades are wrapped in oilcloth, handles bound in cord. One takes a hoe, the other leaves with a hammer. Each nods once. They do not need to speak. The family stops near the stream that runs along the edge of the market clearing. Flat stones lead into the water, and the girl removes her sandals to dip her feet. The stream is cool. The air still shaded. The toddler splashes once, sending drops onto his sister's robe. She laughs, but only softly. They eat here, unwrapping the rice balls and sweet potatoes, passing the gourd of tea between them. A dragonfly lands nearby on a leaf. The girl watches its wings shimmer in the sun, their thin veins catching light like lace. Time slows again. The market does not empty quickly. It fades gently over the course of an hour, one seller folding cloth, another tying bundles, carts creaking back toward forest paths. The flute player has stopped. The wind is warmer now. On the walk home, the road feels shorter. The girl swings her new fan slowly, cooling her face. The father whistles softly. The toddler is asleep again, forehead damp from the sun. Back in the village, the grandmother waits at the door. The girl rushes ahead to show her the fan. She opens it with a flick. The grandmother nods, not in approval, but in recognition. They do not speak of what was spent, only of what was found. The house smells of straw and ink and heat. Bundles are unpacked. The rice is stored. The new sandals set carefully by the door. The sun slips low again. The shadows return to the corners. And somewhere, far off, a bell tolls once. There is a house in the village, quieter than most. Not because it is empty, but because it hums, gently, like breath. It is not a home. No family sleeps here. But each morning, it fills with footsteps, all belonging to women. They come at different hours, with bundles of thread, lengths of cloth, baskets of lunch, stories from their homes, and silence from their hearts. This is the weaving house. Simple, like the others, wooden walls, sliding paper doors, and a tiled roof that gathers the morning sun in patches. Its doorway faces the east, where the light arrives first. By mid-morning, the sound begins. Not loud, not sharp, only rhythm. The wooden shuttle sliding through the loom, shh, clack, clack, shh, clack. A constant heartbeat of thread against thread, wood against wood, time against memory. The grandmother is already there. She has not missed a morning since the rains ended. Her hands are slower now, but steady, each movement deliberate. She weaves not just cloth, but the patterns of her own life. The same design her mother wove, and her mother before her, a wave motif. Simple, repetitive, endless. Beside her, the mother works on another frame. Her cloth is darker, dyed in tea leaves, with plum blossoms embroidered near the hem. She works quickly, almost silently, her breath measured, her fingers dancing. Across the room, the girl sits cross-legged with a scrap of indigo cotton. It is not on a loom yet, only held in her lap, where she pricks it gently with a threaded needle, learning to follow the line's small, uneven stitches, each one a beginning. The weaving house is not formal. There is no master, no student, only doing, only being. Women arrive and leave throughout the day. Some sit for an hour, others for 5. A neighbor arrives carrying dyed silk wrapped around a cedar branch. She bows, sets it down, unfolds it. Its sheen is subtle, more moonlight than gold. The other women pause to look. No one speaks, but one smiles. The woman bows again, sits, and begins to cut lengths from the silk, preparing them for bridal sashes. Above them, paper wind chimes hang from the rafters. Their sound is not like bells, but like distant laughter. The air moves gently through the house. Paper walls flutter. The scent of cedar, cloth, and faint plum lingers. At midday, the looms stop. Not by command, by consensus. Lunch is shared in a circle, plain rice balls, salted beans, miso in covered bowls, and pickled lotus root shaped like flowers. They eat slowly, talking little. The conversation is not necessary. Their closeness is already understood. The grandmother tells a story not loudly and not for the first time, about a young woman who wove a robe so fine that a crane fell from the sky to claim it, about a spirit who lived inside a silk cocoon and sang lullabies to unborn children, about a girl who stitched the name of her mother into every hem she made so no one would forget her. The girl listens with wide eyes, chewing slowly. When the story ends, no one comments. They simply fold their claws and return to the frames. The sound begins again. Shh. Clack. Shh. Clack. Each beat aligns with breath. Each beat is a thread. Outside, the cicadas have grown louder. Their rhythm competes with the looms not angrily, but like two streams running side by side. The toddler, brought in after waking from his nap, crawls toward the looms, entranced by their motion. The mother scoops him up just before he reaches the threads. He does not cry, only watches, head tilted, then rests his cheek on her shoulder and sleeps again. The girl's stitches have improved. She shows them to her grandmother, who nods once, then places the scrap on her lap and begins to stitch beside her, same thread, same cloth, two hands working side by side. This is how it has always been. Weaving is not about perfection. It is about return, to motion, to memory, to meaning. Outside, clouds begin to gather. Not rain yet, but the smell of change. The light softens. The paper windows glow gold. One by one, the women gather their tools. No bells chime, no clock calls them, but they know. The girl folds her cloth carefully, ties it with string, and places it in her sleeve. The grandmother covers her loom with a cloth, a simple gesture, a promise to return. They bow slightly to one another, then leave. The weaving house grows still again. Only the wind remains, fluttering the chimes one last time. The storm does not arrive suddenly. It builds like a breath drawn slowly in. Long before the first drop falls, the village knows. The wind changes first, brushing in from the south, heavy with sea salt and cedar. The bamboo bends slightly, rustling not in panic, but in anticipation. Then, the light fades not completely, but enough to dim the corners of the rooms. Clouds gather in the sky like smoke, thick and layered. And then a single drop. Then another. Then 1,000 more. Not harsh, not violent, just steady. The rain begins. On the wooden roof, the sound is soft and rhythmic, like fingers tapping on a drum skin. It fills the spaces between footsteps, between heartbeats. Inside, the family pauses. The father was repairing the fence. He sets the hammer down, moves the basket of nails under cover, and sits just inside the door, watching the rain bead along the eaves. The toddler waddles beside him, barefoot, his small feet slapping on the wooden floor. He sticks one hand out into the rain, pulls it back with a surprised squeal, then reaches again. The mother smiles from the hearth. She has already begun to prepare soup, something thicker, more nourishing, for a day without fieldwork. She adds burdock root and slices of taro, the steam rising to meet the soft mist leaking through the edges of the doorframe. The girl kneels near the window with a brush and rice paper. She does not write words, only patterns. A swirl, a wave, a cloud. The grandmother sits further inside, sewing by the light of the open door. Each stitch mirrors the sound of rain. In, out, pull, pause. The world outside darkens slightly. The paths between houses turn to soft mud. The stone steps glisten. Water gathers in the bamboo gutter and flows gently into the wooden drain. It sounds like a brook in miniature. But the village is not disturbed. Storms are not interruptions. They are invitations to stay still, to stay close, to listen. By midday, the wind picks up. Shutters creak. The fire pops. The rain becomes louder, not violent, just present. The grandmother sets aside her cloth and carefully folds it into a wooden box. She stands slowly, her knees stiff, and places a rolled cloth at the base of the door to keep the wind from sneaking in. The toddler has fallen asleep near the hearth. His sister covers him with a thin cotton robe. In the corner of the room, the father unrolls a straw mat and begins repairing a broken section. His hands move slowly, pulling reeds through the frame, knotting them tight. He hums as he works, not a song, just breath turned into sound. The girl returns to her drawings. She now paints the rain itself long blue strokes, curved slightly, falling gently across the page. Outside, a distant crack of thunder. Not near, not sharp, just enough to remind the sky that it is alive. The rain continues. Other villagers can be seen through the slatted windows. One carrying a bucket under his robe, another tying down a stack of straw outside his door, two children laughing as they leap barefoot through puddles. The storm is not feared. It is known, expected, respected. In the afternoon, the wind settles slightly. The clouds thin. From the kitchen, the scent of soup fills the air. Miso, root vegetables, a splash of sake, a dusting of sansho pepper. The family eats together in a quiet circle. No words are needed. The warmth in the bowl speaks. The toddler wakes, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand, then snuggles into his mother's side. He is offered a bite from her chopsticks. He accepts it without protest. After the meal, the father steps outside beneath the overhang. He looks up at the sky not to question, only to observe. Raindrops fall from the edge of the roof in a steady curtain. He places a wooden bucket beneath the drip to collect water. The girl joins him, holding her hand out once more. Then both stand in the quiet rhythm of falling water, saying nothing. Behind them, the grandmother begins to sing softly an old song from a season long before the girl was born. It is about a fisherman caught in a storm. It is about a village waiting for his return. It is about the sea, which takes and gives but never forgets. The melody winds through the house like smoke, carrying memory, weaving safety. By late afternoon, the storm begins to move on, not all at once, but gradually. The rain lightens. The clouds break, one by one. A single beam of sun lands on the wet stones near the garden. Steam rises from the earth. A slow exhale. The birds return first tentatively, then the frogs. The toddler reaches for his sandals. He is not allowed to go out yet, but soon. The father steps into the yard to check the roof. A few tiles have shifted. He climbs the ladder carefully with a cloth tucked into his belt and writes them gently, one by one. No rush. No complaint. Only care. The girl sets her drawings near the window to dry. The paper curls slightly at the edges. But the blue ink holds. The soup pot is washed and dried. The firebank stirred to warmth once more. The grandmother sits again with her sewing, picking up the thread where she left it, as if time had paused with her. And as the sun begins to lower and the paths begin to firm again, the storm has passed, not with drama, not with fear, but with the quiet assurance that everything moves, everything changes, and everything returns. The morning light carries a scent, not of rain or fields, but of smoke, rice flour, and something sweet. It is the morning before the village festival. There is no loud announcement, no flags waving high, only signs known by all who live here. The old men sweep the temple steps. Children chase one another in robes too long for them. And the smell of roasted soy begins to curl through the streets like a memory. Inside the home, the grandmother unwraps a small wooden box. It is lacquered in deep red, worn at the corners, and tied with a faded purple cord. Inside are the paper names, handwritten, some new, some older than the girl herself. Each name is traced once by the grandmother's finger. She does not read them aloud. She does not need to. The girl watches quietly, sitting cross-legged on the floor. She does not ask. She only listens. To the silence between names, to the breath her grandmother holds when unfolding each sheet. It is a day for remembering. The mother prepares sweet rice cakes. Simple mochi, dusted with kinako powder and filled with crushed red bean. She shapes them slowly, setting each one on a tray of white cloth. Some are for the altar. Some will be eaten under lantern light later. The toddler stands beside her, covered in flour. He tries to shape his own, but they collapse in his palm. Still, he offers them proudly. She places his on a separate tray, not for the altar, but not discarded. The father and other villagers are already at work in the temple yard. Bamboo poles are tied with fresh cords, lanterns lifted and fastened overhead. Each lantern is painted with black characters, some of them no longer legible from time. But their meaning is clear. Light. Guidance. Return. The drummer arrives next. Not young, but with strong shoulders and a gentle voice. He carries the taiko over one hip like a basket. He does not play it yet. Only places it near the steps, where it will wait until dusk. The festival is not loud. Not in this village. It is for returning, of spirit, of memory, of rhythm. By midday, the girl helps her grandmother prepare the offering altar in their home. A low wooden table is set before the family shrine. On it, a dish of salt, a bowl of rice, a single cup of sake, and the mochi, stacked gently in threes. Each placement is careful. There is no hurry, no step missed. They bow, then step back in silence. Outside, the village grows gently brighter, not in sunlight, but in color. Small strips of paper are hung from branches, each with a hope written in charcoal. They flutter in the breeze like bird feathers, dancing, waiting to be read by wind, not people. The girl writes her own. Not with words, but with a picture. A crane flying over water. She ties it to the plum tree near the gate. At dusk, the drums begin. Not fast. Not loud. A heartbeat. One hand. Then another. Then stop. Then again. The sound is not meant to call the living, but to guide the spirits. The villagers gather slowly in the temple yard. They wear cotton robes dyed with summer scenes, pine, waves, dragonflies. The girl wears one with paper lanterns stitched along the sleeves. Her hair is tied with red string. She carries a fan. The toddler is carried on the father's back, wide-eyed and blinking slowly under the lantern light. The grandmother walks slowly beside them, one hand on the girl's shoulder. The priest steps forward only once. He bows toward the mountain, then toward the earth. He speaks no sermon, only 3 words. We are here. The drums continue. Soft, steady. Children offer flowers. Elders offer flame. The paper names are carried one by one and placed into a clay bowl. A single coal is dropped inside. The smoke rises straight upward. No one claps. No one cheers. But all eyes lift. The girl watches as the smoke thins, then disappears into the night. She thinks of her grandmother's hands, the sound of sewing in the morning, the scent of mochi dust, and the crane she drew earlier. Later, as the drums quiet, the food is shared. Not in feast, but in community. The girl shares mochi with her friend. The toddler takes his flattened rice cake and presses it to his sister's cheek, laughing softly. The lanterns sway. The shadows grow long. The river nearby carries the sound of frogs, cicadas, and soft human laughter. One by one, the names are gone. One by one, the lights will dim. But for now, all are here, alive, remembered, welcomed. The season is turning, not with frost, not with wind, but with a hush. Summer is not gone, but it has exhaled its last warm breath. And now the earth begins to lean towards stillness. The villagers feel it before they see it. The shadows are longer now, even in the morning. The sun arrives later, its light slanting gently through the paper screens, painting patterns on the wooden floor that shift slowly with time. The air is cooler, not cold, just cool enough to wrap your sleeves a little tighter. The girl wakes before the others. She slips quietly from her mat and pads softly through the house. Outside, the mist is low across the rice fields. The tips of the stalks pierce through it like islands in a cloud sea. She breathes in, deep. The scent is subtle now. Faint grain, early dew, and that particular quiet that only appears when seasons change. Today is for Tsukimi moon viewing. It is not a festival, not in the way of drums or dancing. It is a pause, a breath held in the palm of night. The family begins their day as always. The father gathers tools for finishing the last of the harvesting repairs. The mother dries herbs beneath the eaves, laying them carefully across woven mats. The toddler plays with an empty basket, pretending to gather imaginary crops. The grandmother hums as she selects a clean cloth for tonight's small altar. They do not speak much. It is a quiet kind of day, one that doesn't ask for words. The girl helps her mother gather pampas grass from the edge of the field. Its tall silver fronds shimmer in the morning light, bending with the breeze. They place the cut stalks in a narrow clay vase. Not many, just enough to honor the moon. Beside them, the father sets aside a small wooden platform. Upon it they place a bowl of steamed rice. 3 white rice dumplings round like the moon, a small cup of sake, and the vase of grasses. No incense today, only silence. In the afternoon, the grandmother shows the girl how to fold paper into rabbits. Not complex folds, just ears, a nose, a tail. Because the moon is full, she whispers, and the rabbit is awake. The girl places one rabbit beside the dumplings on the platform. She adds a second, smaller one. For the toddler, she says. He claps once in delight, not understanding, but pleased. As the sun begins to lower, the light turns gold, then lavender, then pale. The sky clears slowly, revealing stars one by one. Villagers begin to gather on low stools in open yards or temple courtyards. They do not dress in finery. They do not arrive in groups. They simply appear like lanterns lighting softly in the dark. The girl carries her own stool beside the grandmother. The toddler rests against the mother's leg, half asleep. The moon rises. First behind the trees, then above the rooftops, then, slowly, into full view wide and silent. It is almost too bright. It casts shadows, even at night. No one speaks. There is only the rustle of sleeves, the chirp of crickets, the quiet breathing of many gathered hearts. The offerings are not touched. They are not gifts to take. They are acknowledgments, symbols, a gesture that says, "We see you." The father drinks one sip of sake. The mother passes a dumpling to the girl. She holds it, round and warm, then offers half to her brother. The grandmother folds another rabbit. The breeze carries the sound of a flute. Not nearby, but drifting across the village from someone playing alone. Its melody floats like smoke. Upward, aimless, soft. The toddler points at the moon and whispers something no one understands. Then he rests his head once more. The girl leans into her grandmother's side. The warmth there is steady. This is the end of the long day. The end of the long season. Not with fireworks. Not with applause. But with return, the rice fields rest. The insects soften. The sky is wide and watching. The moon, full and round, is neither rising nor falling. It is simply here. Like memory, like breath, like the sound of cloth folding in the dark, the sound begins before the village stirs. Not a voice, not a bird, not even a bell, only a soft scrape. Then another, and again. The carpenter is already at work. His shop rests at the edge of the village path, a wide, open structure with a deep overhang shaded by cedar trees. It does not call attention, but it has always been there. Inside, wood in many forms, boards stacked by length and grain, beams resting on low stands, offcuts waiting for kindling or bowls, shavings gathered like curled feathers in a corner. There is no clutter, only purpose. The carpenter moves without hurry. He is old but not bent. His robe is plain a dull blue, smudged with sap. He lifts the plane, places both hands upon it, and pushes. A smooth stroke. The blade catches the wood, and a ribbon curls upward. It lands beside the others, a nest of shaved time. He doesn't measure aloud. but his fingers read the board like braille, checking width, flex, memory. His apprentice arrives as the sun clears the trees. Younger, quieter, he bows, steps into the shop, and begins sweeping the shavings from the night before. The two exchange no words. They don't need to. The morning is devoted to framing a threshold beam. Cedar, straight-grained, harvested 2 seasons ago, it has rested, dried, and dreamed long enough. The carpenter examines it, knots, none. Cracks, a fine one near the edge but manageable. He lifts the chisel, taps, not hard, just enough. The apprentice watches closely, holding the beam steady with his knees. The joinery must be perfect. No nails, only teeth one notch interlocking with another. The precision is not mechanical. It is alive. Every strike, every cut, every silent moment between motions is a conversation between hands and grain. The village slowly wakes around them. The sound of distant roosters, a child calling for breakfast, the hiss of rice cooking, but inside the shop, only the soft percussion of tools. Tap, pause, shave, slide. The apprentice brings water in a clay cup. They drink without speaking. Then the carpenter moves to the old chest. Inside, his father's tools, wrapped in cloth, oiled, named. He lifts a curved saw not for cutting, but for finishing. The teeth have been worn by 3 generations. The carpenter runs a finger along its edge, then begins. The beam narrows slightly at one end where it will rest in shadow. It must match the doorway of the home being built, a gift for a couple wed last season. The wood will not shine. It is not meant to. But it will last. 100 rains. 100 festivals. 100 days of laughter and silence beneath it. By midday the joint is shaped. Mortise and tenon. Clean. Fitted once. Then again. No gaps. No creaks. The carpenter brushes his hand over the finished edge. Nods once. The apprentice smiles. They break for lunch. Simple fare. Pickled radish, barley rice, roasted tea. They eat near the open door, the beam resting before them like a sleeping body. Afterward, the apprentice returns to sanding smaller cuts of wood pieces for a garden bench. The carpenter begins work on a window frame. He selects pine. Lighter. Knotted. Full of character. The window will face the plum trees. It doesn't need to be exact, only kind. He measures with string. Marks the cuts with charcoal. Then, quietly, he sings. Not loudly. Barely above breath. A builder's song. Not for speed, but for rhythm. The apprentice listens, then joins in softly. The birds pause. Even the wind seems to rest against the doorway, as if listening. By late afternoon, the shop is full of light. The floor glows with the reflection of oiled wood. The scent of cedar and pine is thick but not sharp. The girl from the home nearby stops at the doorway. She's holding a toy, a carved horse the carpenter made for her years ago. She bows, then asks shyly, "Can he have a friend?" The carpenter nods, takes a scrap of maple. Within a few minutes, a rough outline appears. Small legs, a body, a head. He does not finish it completely. He hands it to her with a smile. "Now it waits for you," he says. She bows again, beaming, and runs back home. The apprentice watches. He understands. Not everything must be perfect, but everything must be touched. As the sun lowers, they begin to clean. Tools are wiped. Edges checked. Handles oiled. Blades sheathed. The shavings are gathered and set aside, some for kindling, some for the paper maker, some just to carry the scent of the day a little longer. The beam is placed with care along the wall. Tomorrow it will be delivered. Tonight it will rest. The sun has risen, but the villagers stay indoors longer today. There is no need to rush. The fields are quiet, the air is drier, and the day is for preserving. In the back of the home, the grandmother kneels beside wide ceramic jars. Her hands are stained with plum and miso, and the scent of vinegar lingers in the air like memory. Thin slices of daikon are arranged in perfect circles, layer upon layer, between sheets of salt and stone weights. Not a word is spoken. Her daughter adds ginger, then lotus root, moving with the same steady patience. This is not cooking, this is the art of keeping time from fading. Outside, strips of radish hang on ropes between beams, swaying gently. In the smokehouse, slivers of burdock root are dried above a low fire. The scent, sharp, earthy, clean, drifts lazily across the yard. Children watch, fascinated, as steamed rice is cooled in wooden tubs, prepared for the long, slow birth of koji. By midday, the jars are sealed. Chalk symbols mark the dates, though the women would remember them even without writing. Nothing in this room will be touched for weeks, and yet it is full of life. Full of waiting, full of seasons, captured in brine and care. As autumn stretches across the village, the day is set aside not for farming, but for memory, the kind sealed in brine and silence. Inside the dim, cool kitchen, the grandmother kneels by heavy clay jars. Her fingers, seasoned by decades of practice, move in soft repetition, layering sliced daikon with coarse salt, weighing it down with flat river stones, whispering small checks under her breath. Across from her, her daughter prepares lotus root and ginger in vinegar, while the granddaughter rinses plums from last season, each fruit a small memory steeped in syrup. Outside, burdock and radish strips hang from bamboo poles, drying in the slow morning sun, swaying slightly in the breeze like quiet banners of diligence. The air is fragrant with miso, smoke, and patience, a stillness only broken by the creak of lids being lifted or the soft rustle of pickling cloth. By mid-afternoon, steam rises from the wooden rice tubs as the family cools a fresh batch of grain, destined for koji, the living heart of miso and sake. The smokehouse glows gently with its low fire, where jars of paste are warmed just enough to wake the mold without hurrying it. Children carry bowls of salted vegetables to the shelves, asking careful questions, which are answered in slow, thoughtful phrases. Pickling isn't just preservation, it's rhythm, it's trust, it's honoring the future by tending the present. And when the last jar is sealed and the coals are left to fade, the family gathers outside with tea. Beneath the golden sky, the grandmother looks over the rows of resting jars, then closes her eyes and exhales not out of fatigue, but in quiet satisfaction, as though the season itself has now been safely folded away. The morning light spills softly through the shoji, illuminating the lacquered kimono chest like a shrine to memory. The grandmother slides it open gently, each drawer releasing a faint scent of camellia oil, cedar, and decades of touch. Inside lie silks and cottons, some faded, some barely worn, each folded with care, wrapped in paper, and bound with narrow cords. Today is the day for changing out the seasonal garments for airing, refolding, and selecting what will be worn in the coming cool. The young girl sits nearby, watching as one kimono after another is carefully lifted, unfolded, examined in silence. Some are simple indigo dyed with wave motifs, others glimmer faintly with embroidered cranes or maple leaves. Each is a story not told aloud but felt in texture and weight. As the mother enters, the process of dressing begins, not for vanity but for reverence. A robe is laid across the girl's shoulders, her arms guided gently through, then tied in place with a soft sash. The grandmother smooths the fabric down the child's back, murmuring that this pattern was her own when she was little. Layers are not rushed, they are wrapped, held, tied, smoothed, a language of care passed through hands. As the day drifts on, kimonos are aired on bamboo rods in the sunlight, sleeves fluttering like flags of memory. Later, they are refolded with silent precision, pressed into shape with wooden paddles, and return to their place like sacred scrolls. And as the sun lowers behind the thatched roof, the chest is closed once more, not with finality, but with the quiet trust that its contents will be there when the seasons shift again. There is a house in the village no one hurries to. No children run past it shouting. No one pounds on the door. No merchant calls out from its gate. It is quiet. Always. And yet it is not forgotten. Because inside, the hours are measured not by bells or bird song, but by steam, movement, and the turning of wrists. It is the tea house. Tucked into the side garden behind the temple, shaded by pine and stone. The structure is small, no grand beams or tile. Just wood, aged dark by decades of boiling water and soft steps, and a single Norin curtain hanging in the entrance, its edges frayed like the hem of a well-loved sleeve. Here, time folds inward. The host rises with the sun. He is older, though no one knows exactly how old. His posture is upright. His voice is seldom used. He does not live in the tea house, but beside it. His home is simple: one room, a stove, 2 shelves, and many brushes. He bathes quietly. He does not eat yet. He dresses in linen robes, pale gray today, and brushes them smooth with his palm. He steps into the tea house as he always does, barefoot, eyes lowered, with one breath in the doorway before entering. The room is cool, shaded. The tatami mats smell faintly of green straw and smoke. At the far end, a scroll hangs. Today, the kanji reads, Yihui Ichi. One time, one meeting. He bows, then begins. First, he sweeps. Not because there is dust, but because the act is essential. A motion, not just a task. His broom is silent. His hands glide across shelves, over bowls, across trays, pausing here, adjusting there. Everything has its place. Even the way a whisk is turned on the tray. He lights the kettle. The water is rainwater collected in an old clay jar from the garden, filtered by pebbles and pine roots. He places the iron kettle over the charcoal stove. Not yet hot. Not yet ready. He does not rush it. He kneels and stares into the small flames, as if in conversation. Outside, the garden is breathing. The moss glows green in the early light. A dragonfly rests on a stone basin. The bamboo ladle beside it is already damp with dew. There are no guests yet, but the host prepares as if they've already arrived. At the edge of the village, a woman smooths her obi. She is not dressed formally, only cleanly. A pale blue kimono with a wave pattern. She is not in a hurry. No one is ever late to the tea house. She walks slowly, basket in hand, sandals brushing the path with soft pattering steps. She passes the temple, bows once, and turns to the side gate. The path to the tea house is narrow, lined with flat stones, half sunken in moss. She pauses before the norin, breathes once, then steps inside. The host greets her with a bow. She returns it. No words are exchanged. She places her sandals beside the door and enters on bare feet. The mats are cool, almost soft. The host gestures to the waiting mat. She kneels, hands resting on her lap. Another guest arrives, a farmer, his robe smelling faintly of sun and soil. Then a third, a merchant's daughter, no older than 16, silent but alert. 3 guests. No more. That is enough. The host enters, holding a small lacquered tray. He places it with care. A bowl, a bamboo whisk, a folded cloth. He bows again. The tea will begin soon. But first a pause. The scroll is read. The flowers are admired, only 2 today. A wild lily and a sprig of pine, arranged with space between them. A small charcoal brazier is adjusted. The host checks the coals not for heat, but for shape. He places fresh charcoal with long metal tongs, each movement precise and soundless. Then, at last, the kettle sings. Not boiling, just murmuring. He ladles water into the tea bowl, swirls, empties, wipes, then adds powdered tea matcha, fresh, bright, just opened this morning. He adds water again, then whisks. The motion is gentle, but deliberate, a quiet frothing that blooms into green foam, velvety and still. He places the bowl before the first guest. She bows, lifts it, turns it slowly in her hand before drinking. 3 sips, then the final, quiet breath through the rim. She wipes the bowl with a cloth, bows, and returns it. The host receives it with 2 hands. Then the next guest. Then the next. Each movement is a meditation. Each breath carries intention. No one speaks. The wind stirs the trees. A pine cone falls in the garden. The kettle bubbles once, softly. Time continues. But inside the tea house, it does not matter. More tea is served. But this time, thicker. A second preparation. The powder is doubled. The whisking slower. The guests sip in silence. The girl closes her eyes. The farmer's shoulders lower. The woman breathes deeper, face soft in the low light. The host bows once more, then pours a small bowl of water and rinses the utensils in a slow, elegant sequence. Not cleaning, but honoring the ceremony is ending. He folds the cloth once, twice, 3 times, places the lid on the tea caddy, extinguishes the flame, and bows again. Each guest bows in return, then rises. Still silent, they slip on their sandals, step outside into the garden. The wind greets them. The path is the same stones, moss, stillness. But something is different now. Inside the tea house, the host sits alone. He looks at the empty mat, the cleaned bowl, the scroll that still reads, 1 time, 1 meeting. He closes his eyes. He does not smile. He does not sigh. He simply listens to the garden, to the breath of the tea house, to the silence that remains after everything is complete. In a narrow side path behind the fields, past the mulberry trees and the still unmoving well, a low building crouches against the rising light. The smoke house. It is not grand, not even large. Its roof is thatched and thick, with moss in the corners and a crooked rain barrel at the back. Its walls lean just slightly, as though they're listening to the past. There is no sign, no lantern at the door, but everyone knows the smell. It is the scent of waiting, of patience, of memory soaked in smoke. Inside, the air is thick and dark. The rafters are hung with dozens of fish, silver-scaled, cleaned, and salted, each pierced by a wooden skewer and hung on thin twine. Rows of miso-cured radish slabs sit on bamboo trays. Strips of eel, shavings of burdock root, slender cores of wild mushroom coiled like ribbons. At the heart of the room, the fire, not roaring, just glowing. Deep orange embers beneath a pile of blackened pine and oak chips. It does not flame, it smolders. The smoke drifts slowly upward, curling around the fish, the trays, the beams, then slipping out through a small square hole in the roof. It takes with it the moisture, the sharpness, the time. The smokehouse keeper arrives before sunrise. He carries a small box of dried bark and coals from the fire he keeps at home. Always lit, always watched. His hands are dark with years of wood and salt. He walks without sound, his breath visible in the cool morning. He kneels before the hearth, shifts the ash, and adds the new coals gently. The fire awakens, not with noise, but with warmth. He checks each row of fish. He knows which were hung yesterday, which are on their third day, which must come down today. He taps them lightly. A hollow sound means they're done. He lifts one, just one, and places it on a lacquered tray. It will go to the temple, a morning offering. No one speaks inside the smokehouse. Even the birds are quieter near it. Outside, the smoke trickles from the roof like breath from a sleeping mouth. A child passes carrying a basket. She stops. She closes her eyes, inhales. She knows this smell. Her family's winter food is here. The taste of festival broth, of noodles with flaked mackerel, of nights by the hearth. She bows once toward the building, then walks on. Mid-morning, the keeper stirs the fire again. He adds fresh chips, a blend of plum wood and cedar bark. The room shifts. The smoke turns sweeter, more fragrant. The fish shimmer slightly as oil begins to release. He hums quietly to himself. Not a tune, just a rhythm. He moves slowly through the shadows, checking trays, turning sticks, wiping drips from the bamboo mats. Everything inside happens slowly. The moisture must leave gradually. Too fast, and the flavor is lost. Too fast, and the work unravels. This is not cooking. It is preserving, keeping, holding the present in place until the future is ready. Outside, 2 villagers arrive, both elders. One brings a bundle of daikon slices wrapped in cloth. The other, a basket of river fish caught 3 days ago. They do not speak much. The keeper greets them with a nod. They sit on low stools near the doorway, drinking barley tea. Together, they listen to the fire. There is nothing urgent. The smokehouse does not rush. It accepts, it warms, it waits. They speak quietly of past winters, of a fire once lit too high, of fish that cured too dry and still fed the family through February. Laughter comes softly, like steam from a clay cup. Then, one elder rises and places the basket beside the fire. The keeper nods. He will salt them later, after today's drying is done. As the sun climbs, the smokehouse darkens. Not because the light fades, but because inside there are no windows. Only smoke and wood and the scent of years. The keeper places several trays near the doorway to cool. not too close to the wind, just enough to dry without drawing in insects. A cat appears. She sits near the threshold, tail curled, eyes alert. She is always here. She never begs. But the keeper sets aside a strip of dried sardine, broken in half. She takes it silently, disappears. By late afternoon, the room is warm and still. The fire dims. The fish no longer drip. The keeper climbs a wooden stool, removes a row of yellowtail. They are beautiful now, golden, firm, fragrant. He wraps them in rice straw and places them in a box lined with dried leaves. The rest remain. Tomorrow, they'll finish. Or the next day. The keeper never marks the days. He trusts the fire. He trusts the wood. He trusts the sound the fish makes when tapped. That is enough. As the sun sets, the smokehouse breathes slower. The embers fade. The air cools. The keeper sweeps the ash into a low pan. He wipes down the trays, covers the hanging meats with soft cloths. He lights a single lantern not for light, but to thank the space. He bows once to the hearth, then steps out. The door creaks shut. The smoke lingers. Not heavy, just enough to say, something is happening here. Quietly, slowly, faithfully. When the rest of the village sleeps, one window glows. Dimly, steadily. It is not a home, but a room within the temple. A narrow chamber lined with scrolls, worn cushions, and a single low table. Inside, the monk does not sleep. He sits cross-legged, motionless, before the table. His robe falls around him like pooled ink, loose and unbothered. The candle at his side burns with a faint tilt, its wax inching slowly toward the lacquered floor. He takes a breath, then lowers his brush. He has been copying text every night for over 20 years. He does not rush. He does not count the pages. His task is not to finish, only to continue. The paper is handmade, soft fibers, thick with faint grain. He has felt every sheet before it was placed, checked for weight, for rhythm. The inkstone rests before him, shallow, dark, smooth as riverstone. He adds a drop of water from a porcelain bowl, then begins grinding the ink stick. A slow, circular motion. Each turn releases a faint scent, earthy, pine-like, ancient. The ink forms patiently in the stone's hollow, not too thin, not too thick. He dips the brush. The bristles accept the ink like roots drawing water, and the first stroke touches the page. Not loud, not bold, just present, just now. The text is familiar. A sutra. He's copied it more than 100 times, but never the same way. Each character must be written as if for the first time, as if it is both sacred and forgotten. His hand moves without tension. The strokes are deliberate, not stiff, not rushed. His breath is steady. Inhale with the horizontal stroke. Exhale with the curl of the tail. His body is still. Only the wrist moves. Then the fingers. Then the brush. The candle sputters briefly. He does not flinch. Outside, the forest murmurs. A branch creaks in the wind. Far away, a fox barks once. But here, the silence is thick. Weighted, alive. The monk's back does not touch the wall. His spine is long. His eyes are half lowered, never blinking for long. He completes one page, lifts it carefully, places it on a tray to dry, then sets another. He repeats, grinds, dips, writes, Sometimes he whispers the words as he writes them, but not always. Sometimes the words are only written, not spoken. Sometimes they're not written at all, only remembered. He pauses now, reaches to the small dish beside him. Dried plum soaked in tea. He eats it slowly, then drinks. Not to refresh, but to remind his body it is still here. Above him, the rafters groan. The scrolls along the walls breathe softly in the breeze. Each one once touched by a monk like him, perhaps older, perhaps younger, perhaps long forgotten, but they sit here now, resting, each letter a record of patience, each line a map of stillness. He begins again. The ink is thicker this time. The characters flow with more depth. A soft brush hair loosens. He removes it without pause, dips the brush again, one page, then another. He does not watch the candle, but he feels it. When the light begins to change just faintly, just slightly, he knows the hour is nearing dawn. Still dark, but no longer deep night. He writes one final line, then rinses the brush. Not quickly, with care. The ink fades from the bristles, one swirl at a time. He dries the brush with a cloth, places it in his sleeve, covers the inkstone, extinguishes the candle. The room returns to darkness, but not emptiness. The scent of ink lingers, the quiet weight of the written pages, the faint warmth of the monk's presence still in the cushion. He bows once toward the paper, then rises. He does not stretch. He does not sigh. He simply folds his robes, collects the tray, and steps out into the pre-dawn air. The world has not yet begun again, but it will. And when it does, the words will remain, written in silence, one brushstroke at a time. Before the village fully wakes, the fields already glow. A pale light rolls across the flooded paddies like silk unraveling. Still, water reflects the sky's soft blue, brushed with white mist. The air is warm, damp, thick with the promise of another day. And standing at the edge of the field, a line of straw hats. Silent, patient, waiting not for a signal, but for one another. The first step is always slow. Into the mud, warm, yielding, alive. The water swirls around their feet, clouding with silt, then clearing again, settling. The villagers work side by side, young and old, women and men, shoulder to shoulder, toes sinking into the past. They carry woven baskets filled with seedlings, tiny green blades swaying gently with each step. One by one, they press each seedling into the earth. Not deep, just enough. Row after row, step, reach, plant. Their movements form a rhythm, not hurried, not forced, just steady, like breathing. One woman hums a song from her mother, low, repetitive, sweet like barley tea. Another joins in, then another, until the field is filled with sound, not loud, but full. A work song, a planting song, a melody meant not to entertain, but to anchor. It carries them. The ache in their backs is lighter. The sun feels slower, Even the heron standing on the irrigation ditch listens, head tilted, still as stone. The old man near the edge chuckles. He remembers planting with his brothers when the field was not yet so wide, and the water came from buckets, not carved channels. His hands still know the depth, the spacing, the way to feel the mud between thumb and palm. He does not plant quickly, but every seedling stands upright. No waste, no wobble. A boy beside him watches, learns, does not ask questions, just copies the hand. This is how knowledge moves, not through words, but through work. By mid-morning, the field is half full. The sun is high, but the breeze rolls in from the river. A break is called, not loudly, just a pause. They gather on the grass. Baskets are open. Rice balls, salted plums, cucumber slices. They eat in silence for a time. Then a woman laughs. Then a story is told. Then someone begins to sing again. A child runs barefoot between the rows, chased gently by a dog. Neither disturb the seedlings. The mud accepts all things with equal calm. The farmer's wife adjusts her hat, looks out over the planted rows. They are not perfect, but they are true. She drinks from a gourd, wipes her brow, smiles. The work resumes. Hands move again. Mud curls around ankles. Seedlings vanish into soil. A crow passes overhead. A frog croaks from beneath a reed mat. The field listens. There is no rush. Each plant needs only one thing: to be placed with care. That is all. By late afternoon, the field is complete. The villagers stand and stretch. Their robes are soaked at the hem, their hands stained brown, but they smile. There is no celebration, no applause, only the satisfaction of something begun, something that in time will become food and warmth and another year. They gather the baskets, rinse their feet in the shallow stream, brush mud from knees and fingers. The sun slips lower, casting long shadows across the newly planted rows. Each seedling sways gently in the water, as if bowing, as if saying thank you. The villagers bow in return to the land, to each other, to the quiet work they've done together. Then they turn and walk back to the village, leaving behind a field, not silent, but humming with life.